Hey guys, welcome. We have a brand new guest for Xenia Bridge, and my first time meeting her. Somebody who's fairly legendary in the community for her work working against purity culture to kind of normalize female sexuality. So welcome, Erin Louis. I'm really excited to have you.
Erin, you know, just embrace it, baby.
Well,
Just be like,
I'm excited to be here. So thanks for having me. It's good to meet you.
thank you for the fire offerings. Chat Mother Dragon is pleased. Thank you.
Yep,
Mother
the phalanx
Dragon
is
is
definitely
super
here
red
making
tonight.
themselves known.
Mother Dragon has been super red lately.
Erin, for the record, the Greek phalanx is a thing that is done on my Discord server. We have a friendly group of pagans and atheists that will go into ally chats and give tons and tons of fire emojis to announce the
Mother
fact that we are
Dragon
there.
very happy.
Okay.
And usually Jen and I are the ringleaders of it if it's not Jen's stream that's being invaded. So,
Comrade, I'm quiet because I'm just not in the motherfucking mood.
so would you like to give
I
your
got
quick
called a
introduction
whore
to
by
kind
my
of?
neighbors like 15 minutes before we went on air. So
Well, then purity culture is absolutely the thing we need to be talking about again tonight, isn't it? So, Erin, would you like to give a quick introduction? Kind of, I know you've written a book, like you've written 3 books apparently.
I have.
So, do you want to talk a little bit about that and about the work that you've done in the community?
Well, I wrote my first book. It came out in 2014, actually, and it was pretty much my my memoirs. I called Dirty Money. I had danced for so long at that point, about 15 years, and a lot of people were saying, "Hey, write a book," and I always thought about it. I love to read, I love to write, and I finally got kind of just fed up and irritated with the Dr. Phil talk show type narrative about dancers, and then what really got me was the outreach group that would come into the clubs, who was run by somebody I worked with. And so she obviously wanted to convert people. She was very, very evangelical Christian, that kind of thing. And I finally decided that it was time to put a different narrative out there. So that was really why I started writing. So I wrote 2 books about my dancing experience. And then when I got involved with the Freedom from Religion Foundation, my local chapter president suggested I write a book on atheism, humanism, and taking risks. And so that's my latest book, Expose Yourself. So I've written a few articles for...
the cover art on that design, by the way, is absolutely fucking gorgeous. Like, I was taking a look at your website and stuff in preparation for the interview, and I was super impressed.
just real quick, is that mic volume better for the audience? Because they were saying that my mic was super quiet.
You sound louder to me. There's a couple second delay because StreamYard.
It's funny. Ocean comes into the fucking chat. My shit stops working.
I'm sorry for
Okay.
cutting you off, by the
Sorry.
way. It's an ADHD thing. If I do it and it's annoying, let me know. I'm sorry. So first question that we always ask a guest is, what does allyship mean to you? Like, as far as working together to sort of make a better world?
I guess, and of course I was just thinking about this and then forgot it. I guess what it just really means is maybe more along the lines, the way that I would think about it is like humanism, where you're really just trying to understand where somebody else is coming from and being able to support people, and relationships that are made of certain boundaries. So when you know that, you're going to support somebody, it really doesn't make any difference what their actual beliefs are, as long as people are just freaking nice to each other.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty good
And
definition.
let me tell y'all, Erin is the nicest friggin' person. Like,
Really not.
I mean, you're nicer than me,
I'm
which
sure
isn't
there's
a
a lot
high
of people
bar.
that agree.
You're nicer than me, which really isn't that high of a bar. But yeah.
So, like, what has the response been from the secular community overall with your work, kind of trying to give a different narrative about your experiences, like having worked in the adult industry?
For the most part, they've been pretty, certainly more receptive than I would say the non-secular community.
Well, obviously, for at least when it comes to the questions.
Oh yeah, you don't have atheists coming into your club trying to save your fucking soul, you know?
Yeah, no, not at all. No, never happens. No, like when I went to the convention before I actually wrote my third book, and it was really my first time at a convention like that. So it was the first time I had really like been in a group of a whole lot of atheists, and I was still dancing at the time. So, I just said who I was. And so I got a couple of odd comments. One person asked me if I was ever addicted to drugs. A lovely little lady who's actually part of our chapter, and I just dig her.
Oh,
But that was like
a judgment thing? Or do you think it was like a judgment thing, or do you think it was just like
no, I think it was just part of that stereotype. That's all it was. And she wasn't even like, it was like a really nice aunt asking that. It wasn't like but I mean, was I offended? Yeah, I was annoyed right out the gate. But the thing was that she listened to me. And when I told her, no, I smoke pot here and there, but I don't
I'm not like a meth
addict, and all that kind of stuff. But she listened to me, and that I think would be the biggest market difference is between people that might be really very, very religious, is where I felt like the atheist community was more open. So that even if they did have those stereotypes, they were more apt to change their mind, if I'm going to generalize.
Okay, I can see that, because we don't have a book of evil that, oh my god, your nipples out.
Yeah,
you're going to the fourth layer of hell.
I think you forgot about the gospel according to John Peterson, or
Jordan
Peterson,
who is now apparently a standard in the right-wing atheist community.
Yeah, like that absolutely infuriated me. I've noticed, by the way, a movement toward that sort of thing, like on the right-wing side of the atheist community. Have you been observing that? Like, have you run into that, Erin?
I guess maybe a little bit, but to be honest, I'm not, there's a lot of people I've heard of, but it's really only been a couple of years that I have really been like online and seeing a lot of stuff. So like, I've heard of Jordan Peterson. Honestly, I didn't know he was an atheist. So that's like how out of touch I am.
No, trust me, you're not the only one.
Okay, you're not the only one.
What the fuck? You're not the only one.
With a lot of the stuff that goes online on YouTube and Twitter, like I support a lot of YouTube creators, but I don't tend to watch a lot of YouTube. So there's a good portion of the time when people are tweeting about certain this or that I just am not up on it and I don't know. So like I said, this is actually literally the first time that I found out that he was even an atheist. I knew that he was on a little more to the right, but that was it.
So. He's like the definition of latent Christianity, where it's like he only gave up God and absolutely nothing else about Christianity, like fucking nothing. And I'm like, how does that happen? Like, why?
I think like I was reading a book by Steven Pinker, who I've heard people not be a fan of. I happen to really like his writing. And he was talking about the way that people's political stances and positions tend to actually not really change over time as they get older. I noticed that might have a little bit, but I guess I might wonder if somebody who gave up on the idea of God but still holds on to those principles because that's just the environment that they were in. So maybe they were ready to let go of the supernatural part of it or the deity part of it, but still
not the social, moral.
Yeah, and honestly, that's kind of one of my things where I don't really get too interested in those types of arguments. Or the way that I look at atheism is that the only thing that we all really have in common is that we're atheists. And so
I love Erin.
I just think that there's a huge spectrum. You know what I'm saying? Just because we have that one thing in common doesn't necessarily mean that everything else is going to jive too. Atheism isn't a philosophy. It's not a, it's not a moral code.
Tell the atheists that. Don't tell the atheists that.
I mean, I see a lot of that, and that's kind of like what, and I know I'm going to bring up another one of the horsemen. So, But Daniel Dennett was kind of along those lines
Mm-hmm.
in his book, where it was really pretty, you know, this is just one thing. It's only one. It's just like I'm a stripper, but that is not all I am. You know, I'm an atheist. I'm a writer. I'm a mother. I'm, a fucking administrative assistant. So, there's a lot of, I just think defining somebody by one term or one type of belief or one or not belief, as the case may be, is, it's going to get you nowhere.
Well, and one could argue to a certain degree that because of the stereotypes, workers in the adult industry definitely seem to be pigeonholed in that way. Comrade actually, Posidoros is Comrade, good friend of mine from the server, one of my mods, brings up a really good point here. I was not a stripper, but I did work in the adult industry for a little while, and I had problems with clients forgetting sometimes that there are boundaries when it comes to on the job and off the job. Did you ever run into any problems like that, like when you worked in the industry?
I did.
I never. Well, I wouldn't say I never. There, out of 22 years, there may be 5 customers in that entire time that I ever talked to outside of the strip club. So as far as boundaries went, that's what my bouncers were for. So,
yeah, when you work online, they will try to push those boundaries and try to message you and stuff.
But see, that's the thing, is that I'm 40 years old. So online didn't exist for the first,
fair enough.
15 years
of your career.
So, and I worked as actually before I started dancing for about 6 months, I worked as a skip tracer for a collection.
Oh.
So I had access to a lot of people's private information, their credit reports and things like that, because once it was for phone bills. So if they didn't pay their phone bill, I would track them down and try to figure out who they were. And I would go through phone numbers and sometimes call different, whatever. And this is way before what we're doing right now. So I've always been very protective of my identity, and Erin is my real name, by the way. But I never gave out my phone number. Nobody had any access to me in that respect. And some girls would do that, would go, but when I first started, that was like a faux pas. You did not have a phone number. So boundaries for me were established really, really early. There are 1 or 2 customers that, either because they were from out of town, when I worked in Reno, I had I gave somebody my email address so that we could coordinate when we would be in the same town. But that was, he knew where to stop. We didn't have any conversations other than when we were going to go, other than when we were going to meet at the club only. So boundaries were really very, very solid from Jump Street for me.
Somebody mentioned the Captain Save-A-Ho complex.
Mm-hmm.
I had that.
Oh.
And it funnily enough, I was a fendom. So I did financial domination. So it's like, I'm taking your money, yet you want to Captain Save-A-Ho me, which I thought was fucking hilarious. And a lot of the times, after a scene, my clients would be like, I can take you away from all this, and I have the money. And I'm like, why am I going to go from me dominating your wallet to you being my fucking sugar daddy? Are you out of your goddamn mind? What the fuck is it? 1, why are you addressing me out of a scene? 1, with the Captain Save-A-Ho, and I can take you away from here. I was like you and I are the same age. So our career started before online happened.
Yeah,
I had fake names, I had P.O. boxes. I had 2 clients try to follow me home one night. I did have that happen. That's when I learned to take an extra train home at night, because I had a separate studio that I worked out of.
I never walked to or from my car by myself, ever. Yeah. I would say in my entire career, I have never walked to and from my car by myself. In fact, actually, when I worked in Reno, I worked very close to the Harrah's. So the bouncer would literally walk me to my door. I don't know if what I did was a little different. It's just because I only worked in the club, and that was really the end of it. I've never had anybody follow me home. I've never had a stalker. And it's funny when you say Captain Save-A-Ho, because I always referred that sometimes to myself, because there would be times when there would be a girl in trouble or somebody, and you would reach out and either try to help somebody and then, get kind of kicked in the face for it. And so that was a little later on in my career. That was what I would say, is that I'm not Captain Save-A-Ho, because I can't. Sometimes there's just nothing you can do
But
to help.
that Captain Save-A-Ho shit comes from purity culture. It absolutely comes from purity culture, which boggles my mind, because I'm like, you're actively not participating in this, yet you want to save me and feel like you have to be the fucking knight in shining armor because you're engaging in something that's not pure with me. Like, this was the fucking cognitive dissonance that these guys would fucking
Well,
go
and there's also and again, I worked online for a campsite. I'm not going to say what, and I'm not going to say under what name, because I had a stage name that I used. It was years and years ago. At some point, somebody's going to dig it the fuck up. But I constantly had these people.
Dig up one of my Village Voice ads eventually. I know.
Well, this is why I've been so open about it from the beginning, right? Because it's like the fact that could become a scandal really boggles my mind in the modern day. But even within secular circles and even with atheist clients, there was always this assumption that there must be something wrong with me or wrong with my relationships for the clients that knew that I had them. Like they assumed automatically that because there was this intimacy in their perception. To me, it was work, but to them, there was this intimacy between the two of us. They automatically assumed that meant that there was something wrong in my personal life. And what I found was, again, the majority of my clients were actually funnily enough, I had one Christian client, but the rest of them were atheists and would have these interesting discussions in the chat room before I would get taken into private, because that's how that works. They'd start paying once you were in a private room and you'd pop out of the chat room and that kind of thing. And we'd have these interesting philosophical discussions that would go on in these chat rooms, and you'd find out over and over that this latent Christianity, this purity Madonna whore thing, seems to be one of those things that is the slowest to disappear. And I'm curious, Jen, you had talked about how that was the slowest thing to disappear for you. Erin, have you seen that, as far as interacting with people or even in your own deconversion?
Ex-Cult Baby had commented that they're a little afraid because they're getting into sex work. Honey, hit me up, hit Erin up. We will give you tips to protect yourself. We will make sure that you're safe. So just hit any one of us up. We will absolutely be there for you and make sure that you're safe, and anything that may be on your mind about it, we'll both. I'm sure I'm volunteering Erin, and I shouldn't until you're ready, but my DMs are open. Hit me up. We can talk through it. Whatever you need.
Welcome to the show, by the way. It's the first time I've seen you in the chat.
I love it.
Coming back to the question though, did you notice that was a struggle for you, when you deconverted, or have you seen that it is for other people? Do you have any comment on that?
I don't think that I ever really deconverted. And that's a term that I just recently used. I'm not sure that I ever really believed. Maybe when I was a kid. So there was no real deconversion for me. And I was very fortunate in the fact that my mother, although she was raised very strict Catholic, once she got divorced, and I'm the last of 6 kids. So once that happened, she was kind of sowing her oats at that point. And she, she always instilled in me that, being naked is normal. Sexuality is normal. And she very much talked to me about being safe and protecting myself and that kind of thing, both emotionally, physically, physiologically, all that stuff. And so I didn't have I never really grew up with a purity type. I didn't have that mentality. And while I have had guys that have been like, oh, I want to take you away from this, or we should, and very few would say things like that, only people that didn't really know me. But once somebody got to know me, it was more that they just wanted more of a relationship. But I would say that a lot of because I interacted with people face to face. So there was a level of intimacy that I think you might not get online. Although my only frame of reference is the strip club. I've never really had online relationships like that.
I've done
I
both.
think there's
I've done both. I
think there's a certain level of intimacy that even layers on top of it in the online relationship, because
but it's different.
Not anonymity.
Face to face, there definitely is this look into each other's eyes, the touch, the scent, person their intimacy, but online there's this anonymity that opens up their intimacy far more.
Well, see, I think that there is still that anonymous quality, because a lot of times, guys would talk to me about stuff that I knew that they weren't telling me.
Therapist.
And yeah, so
Same.
that was a lot of my type of interactions with customers that I would actually sit and talk with. I mean, obviously, if it's like a Saturday night and you're doing bachelor parties and it's just lap dance after lap dance, that's a different situation. But when it came to like regulars and stuff, they, you got to know their work life or their whatever, and so I never had anybody. I'm not sure that they really wanted to take me out of that, because they didn't think I was looking for that, or I wasn't looking for support. I was never really somebody, I was never what they called a hustler, where I would just necessarily take somebody for a ride. When I had those types of conversations with people, it was very much on a genuine level. I wouldn't sit and talk with somebody for that amount of time, or if I didn't like them at least a little bit, or if I didn't appreciate them, which is actually one of the reasons in my book, when I write about humanism, that was one of the connections that I really made between my job, was that you really do get to learn a lot about just other people and humans in general, in the way that they interact with people, and especially in that type of setting.
Maha has, I don't know who this is addressed to. Maha De Lawrence. I don't know who that question's addressed to.
Well, I can answer it for the online thing. Certain websites that are looking for models will just, like, they have applications. You submit photographs and information, like, to confirm that you're 18 plus, and a lot of them will just let you sign up, but there's a lot of competition for those sites.
I started, so way back when, in the day, before, when we had only AOL, when you slaughtered a robot to get online. New York City had this newspaper called The Village Voice that would come out once a week, and it was just kind of everything that was going on in the city, but in the back, it would have these adult ads. And I wound up becoming a booker and a madam for escort agencies. And one of my girls was into financial domination, and she saw how I had handled these clients that had gotten rough. And she's like, he's like, every client that tries to cheat us, you get our fucking money. Like, it's fantastic. I'm into this. What do you think about this? So I went to her dungeon, checked it out, and then I actually wound up renting the studio like 2 doors down from her from when I did it. And that's how I got into it. And I still was booking escorts. I was still maintaining, booking, caring for escorts as I was doing this at the same time. So that's how I got started into it. The old newspaper days.
Actually, that was how I kind of started too. Was I really disliked my job intensely, and I just didn't like working for somebody. And I had graduated high school early, so I started working like full time when I was like 17, and I just fucking hated it. So I answered an ad to be like a dancer, just for like bachelor parties, so like alcohol, just. Just a dancer. And so I went into the interview, and like, I didn't even get past the front desk. They were like, no. They're like, you're too short. How come you're so pale? Your boobs are too small. And it was like, oh, this is great. So it really kind of fucked me off for like a couple of months. And then I hated my job again. And so I went back to the newspaper, because that's what you found.
The clubs that were open.
Yeah. And, so I saw an ad for a topless waitress, and I knew the club. And so it was an all nude club, but they would have topless waitresses. So you would go and serve drinks, sodas, and then you would be on the dance list. But when you went on stage, you would only go topless and not fully nude. And then you would get minimum wage, plus you'd get to keep your tips on stage. So you didn't do lap dances or nothing like that. So I did that for like a week and a half. And then they told me that I'd be fired if I didn't become a dancer, which is essentially, I was just fired because then you're an independent contractor.
Yes, they didn't want to keep you as a W-2. Yep.
So, but I was 18 at the time. So that was really how I got started. But once I realized that I didn't really have a boss, and I understood the freedom that I had, it was yeah, I was, there was no turning back at that point.
Because you're in control of where you dance. You're in control of when you dance. You're in
For the
control.
most
Yeah,
part, the
for
first
the most
club
part.
kind of towed that line a little bit, and
Mm,
well, and this has actually just happened recently with the Uber thing and the independent contractor thing. I don't know
mm-hmm.
if it might be just a California thing, but that's actually probably the knife in the back of the club that I worked at, because all those girls were independent contractors. But my club didn't do it, but other clubs, at least one that I know of, they blurred the line between employee and independent contractor. And so
Mm,
they were basically trying to have it both ways. And
mm.
the very first club I started at kind of did that too, but it was one of those things where it's all cash. You're dealing with 18-year-old girls, so a lot of times they're not.
They don't know better. Yeah.
I was probably the only person I've ever known that's read their whole contract before they signed it. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna look out for this. I know what they're gonna try to do here. You know, I don't know.
Frustrated atheist. Actually, it was a bit different than that. I wasn't cursing him out. I wasn't threatening to beat his ass. I threatened to tell his wife. I blackmailed him to pay up. And that was Lorna. Lorna, which is obviously not her real name. Absolutely gorgeous woman from Colombia. Beautiful green eyes, gigantic boobs, platinum blonde hair. Fucking gorgeous. She was there. It was her client. And I looked, I said, I have your driver's license, I have your credit card number, and I could probably find your fucking social security number. You don't pay my fucking girl, I'm gonna tell your wife. And I'm gonna tell your job, and I'm gonna tell your fucking family. And she goes, why have you never been a financial dominatrix? Because that's exactly the shit. They love being blackmailed like that. And I was like, well, okay, here we fucking go. I was like, well, this sounds interesting. I'm like, do I got to put the latex and the leather on? She's like, no. They love when you're not dressed up. You just look normal. I was like, well, shit, found my calling. Found my calling.
Yeah, I
So
wish I would have got that call.
It's harder now since it's gone online. It's very much gone the way of being bratty, which was never my style. And it became very much like Twitter wars and unblock fees and, shit like that. And I'm like, I don't have the patience for online. And back in the day, we didn't have to worry about our faces being plastered everywhere. And now I do. And now I got a kid that I got to worry about. Hey, some fucking shithead that he goes to school with is going to come across this and living in the
Yeah,
South. Yeah.
I promised my kid I wouldn't have an Instagram, and he's
that's
warned
actually
me against an OnlyFans, and I'm like, I'm cool. I think
That's actually a really interesting point, though, especially since things are moving online. Would you say that now more than ever, like, destigmatizing sex work is important because of stuff like that? Like, because especially if you're going to be a mother, like, that stigma can really screw with. I've heard that sex workers, even ones that are totally legal on the up and up, they work in the industry and regulated industries and stuff, that they can, potentially have their kids stripped from them. Like, if the wrong person gets mad at them.
And
I
depending on where
don't
you live.
see, if you're doing something legally, how you could have your kid taken away from you.
So,
Mine is I mean, but I don't know. I haven't been in that situation, so I've never really.
this happened a lot to my girls, especially my girls who had actively gotten into doing porn. Um, it was a lot of them would live at the porn houses that they were shooting porn in. And their exes would say, well, they're living at a porn house. And then they would say, well, you're exposing your child to such and such things, and it's an unhealthy environment. And now that it's being moved to online, people can now say that they possibly are doing this with the child in the house, or that the child could walk in, or it creates an unsafe environment for the child because the child is exposed to high level sexual activity, is what was said. So yeah, this does happen.
I mean, I've been to. A friend and I got scouted by a porn scout, and he took us to his house where there was a bunch of porn stars. And I gotta say, it was not an appropriate place for a kid.
Right.
But I didn't think those girls lived there. They were just staying there while they were doing shoots and stuff. So it wasn't like.
Yeah, it's starting to be spun as, well, they're doing it from home. The child can be exposed to it.
Yeah, I guess I can see that online. But I mean, if you're locking the door, I don't know. I don't know.
Southern judges don't want to hear that shit because then it's, oh, well, now, especially now with the kids going virtual for school and they can just stumble on it online. Like, I'm pointing my kids to my, an OnlyFans
Yeah.
account. Yeah, because that's what I'm fucking doing, right? But yeah, the
I
judges, that's why I was thinking about going back to camgirling and findoming camgirling as I was going through my divorce, but I didn't trust. I knew my ex-husband frequented porn sites, and I know they tend to get clipped and pulled. I knew he was going to use that against me, and I already had one strike against me for being a fucking atheist. So
Yes, I figured that it was inevitable that he would end up finding something like that if I had, just because he's 15 years old. I can't even imagine what I would have done with the internet when I was that age.
Yeah.
So
I knew.
For me, I just was never wanted to put him in that position or to have one of his friends run across it. And so that was just my thought. But like I said, because of how I did it and because it was in person, there's really no chance of that. I never really I did some like promotional pictures and stuff for the club that I worked at, but those were on like just like you get $5 off the cover charge if and you have to bring those back in, and then
the flyers. I remember.
Yeah, just little business cards I would give to customers.
I remember
like to make them feel special and come back and see me. But other than that, I did take pictures to have cardboard cutouts. The club was selling cardboard cutouts.
I love that.
But I don't
life-size ones?
Well, 5 foot, which for me is life size.
It's life-size.
So, but I don't think anybody ever bought one. So I don't know.
I mean, if they're still around, I'll buy one.
I don't know. Like I said, I think this whole COVID thing combined with the independent contractor law has probably. I think that's it.
The industry.
Yeah,
it's absolutely good. That's why everybody's moving online. I did want to ask you: were you surprised when you kind of came into the atheist community and still found people who were like, "Oh, you're a stripper"?
No, because that's how it's been my whole life. I mean, for real, it's like, no, I wasn't surprised. Like I said, I never attached any other thoughts or beliefs or personality traits to people that were atheists or atheists, and that's just the end of it. So I definitely expected to get a little, people to do that. Like I said, the only thing I really noticed differently is that people are more willing to listen when I say, yeah, no, I'm not, check my arms. I'm not a drug addict.
To be like,
I
look at my teeth. They're not rotting out of my head.
Yeah, totally. So, I never really, or I'm not a prostitute. That's the other one too. It's like, that's just a lot more. That's just a lot more work.
Right? Like,
it's a lot easier if all you're doing is selling blue balls.
Like, I used to give it to my girls, man, because I'm like, man, y'all see 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 clients a night, depending on how long they worked and how long they were being booked for. I'm like, that shit's exhausting. I was like, I don't know what y'all are fucking doing to keep this energy. I don't know if I should try it because I might become addicted to it. To dance and then prostitute just sounded exhausting.
Yeah. Well, I guess my thought was that if you're a good enough dancer, then why? Because I gotta say, dude, I have never been a fan of prostitutes in the strip club. That has always really pissed me off, especially when they do it in the strip club or they take the customers from the strip club, because it hurts the girls that aren't doing that.
Yeah.
And it's really unfair competition in that respect. If we're all on the same page, then everybody makes money. So, I think in my second, I have a chapter called Hooker and Strippers Clothing. So, because I have a problem with prostitution, I have a problem when somebody's directly competing with me in a context where prostitution is not allowed.
Yeah.
And
it's not because it's not allowed because of some purity shit. It's a level playing field. It's
correct. Well, and it was also a legality thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
the club didn't want to get shut down.
There was always rumors that Vice and stuff was coming in the club, although I'm not sure that was anything ever more than a rumor. But had we got caught doing something like that, that could hurt everybody's livelihood. And then you're stuck going, out of town or to a different club and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, for me, it was important to maintain those standards from a business standpoint. From a morality standpoint, I don't give a shit. Just don't hurt my money and we'll be friends.
That was, I started in club dancing before I started booking girls. That was super common with club dancers too. And it used to piss me off because I'm like, we worked for tips as well. We weren't taking our clothes off, but we had very little clothing on. We were working for tips as well. We were dancing as well. And then they would go run off with clients. And I'm like, the fuck am I doing up here in 8-inch fucking heels? My fucking thighs are burning. This goddamn G-string is so far up my ass, I'm picking my nose with it for pennies because this bitch doesn't want to follow the fucking rules. I'm like, and I'm cold. It's the middle of fucking winter in New York City and I'm fucking freezing because I'm naked. Like, I'm out here in the cold for what? And, well, you'd make more money. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to get the club shut down.
Well,
and I'll admit it was part purity culture that I didn't want to be that dancer.
Well, and that actually brings another really interesting question up. Erin, have you ever gotten the accusation that, like, as a stripper or as a sex worker, that you were just, quote, grifting for clients, or that you're doing that just because you don't want to actually work? Because there seems to be this stigma, especially with online, like, folks, that sex work is easy and that it's not actually work.
I mean, for me, it was definitely work. Anybody that would come and watch me would see that it was work. I mean, was it work in the sense of like working in the collection agency or like doing what I do now? I spent all day fucking around with payrolls and spreadsheets and,
that's what I used to do before I got into sex work, was a job that
no, it was, I mean, yeah, it was work. Was it easier work? I mean, I think it was for me personally. I mean, I think there are definitely times when it seemed like the easy way out. I really have a problem with authority. I have a very hard time getting a job. I hate being an employee. So for me, a regular job was, it was a pain in the ass and I hated it and I was miserable. But dancing, I had the freedom to move around when I wanted and do what I wanted. So, I mean, I think I would have to concede and say at least on some level I was taking the easy way out. But as far as like, dude, I worked in New Year's Eve one night where I don't think I sat down for 8 hours. So, that, by the time I was done, I was like, I felt like a fucking bar rag.
Yeah.
It was rough.
I've danced on New Year's Eve. That,
It's good money at midnight because somebody's going to try to fucking kiss you.
Oh my God. Just like, I was watching, I've done a couple of New Year's parties.
Countdown's over.
Yep. I've done a couple of New Year's parties and like 11:58, 30, I was scrambling up a pillar. I was like, no, don't touch me.
Well, and that actually, like, Erin, though, I would say as somebody who's an independent artist who primarily makes my income off of like my artwork and my writing, I would say that what you were saying about not wanting to have a boss is no different than like an independent artist. Like, it's still work. It's just work on your terms rather than work on somebody else's terms.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I would be, I don't know if I would call what I did art.
Well, I'm saying that the comparison is the same. And actually, dancing is art. Dancing of any kind, especially sexual dancing, that is absolutely art.
You got up
Some
there
of the
in them
oldest forms
heels.
of dancing are definitely, like, we're sexual as hell. Like, don't.
You know what's funny is when I talk about people who use words like free thinker or secular or different types of words as opposed to atheist, because atheists can kind of have that stigma,
that moniker.
And the thing with strippers that people would say exotic dancer or erotic dancer. I saw somebody get in an argument over that on Twitter, and I wrote that I actually think that calling what I did dancing is kind of an insult to actual like professional dancers, because you have like like the professional cheerleaders and you have like people that are like choreographed and like doing, I didn't do anything like that. What I did was basically like play with myself on stage and grab my boobs and stuff. So like I never really felt, and there was a certain performance to it. I mean, I did, like move to music and that kind of stuff. There's people that will argue on that fact, but I didn't climb the pole, I didn't pole tricks, I didn't do anything like that. So I always felt like, and what I wrote about was that stripping is really a more accurate description of what I did, because that's really just what I did. dancing is, you know what I'm saying? I'm not Ginger Rogers out there. I'm not Paula Abdul. That's not, I didn't study dance. I'm not a ballerina. You know, I'm
I don't think I honestly though that's like denigrating people again. Coming back to the art analogy, there are people who are like famous multi-billion-dollar selling authors who never once took a college course in writing, and then there are writers who went through college programs and never produced anything worthwhile in their lives. Like I think calling something artwork or not, like if you enjoyed it and it was, you know, not only like any kind of form of self-expression, or even if you enjoyed it and you were putting on a performance, that is still a form of art, even if it's dirty. I feel like that's a little bit more of a stigma, right? Like playing with yourself, grabbing your boobs, all of those things, that can become its own form of art.
I think it was. I just don't think that it's fair to call it dancing. That's all. That's the only point I'm trying to make. I definitely there was.
She's like, no, I wasn't dancing. But
yeah, I just call it dancing. That's all. I just don't.
Even when I was doing club dancing, you know, I very much became part of the set piece. And
yeah,
if any of you have ever gone out to, I came from the heyday of New York City nightclubs, so these were elaborate lights, these were elaborate setups and elaborate pillars, and it very much became a set piece. So yeah, and people would be like, "Oh, she's just a dancer. She's got her ass out on a fucking pillar," and some, you know, yeah, most of. I wouldn't have called myself a stripper because more than half the time my tits were out and I didn't have to take anything off to get them there. I kept on what I had on for the night, so I wasn't exactly a stripper. So that's what.
yeah. No,
she just dances with her tits out, and I'm like, bitch, I'm fucking art. Y'all see how you see these motherfuckers that get paid for this fucking the Lord of Light that we had Lord of Light that did a lot of the club lighting work, and I'm like, bitch, I'm fucking art. Fuck you. I'm a set piece. Fuck off. No, I'm a fucking Monet up in here with my titties out. No, fuck you. I'm art. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I know girls that have just walked out on stage and literally just taken their clothes off and rub their boobs in people's faces, and there's no dancing whatsoever to it. And like I said, well, I think I probably went a little beyond that point. I just think it's a different thing, and I just have always felt like stripper was more of an honest word, a more accurate word. And I also, in the same way that people will use free thinker as opposed to atheist, I think it's when somebody says exotic or erotic dancing, I think they're trying to soften the blow. And I think if we just say, yeah, I'm a stripper atheist, that is literally what I am, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's that you don't like those words because of what's already attached to them.
Do you think that not glamorizing it, saying exotic dancer, and I forgot the other term you used. It was exotic dancer, and
I saw some argument on Twitter that it should be called erotic dancing and not
erotic dancing.
And
you're like, no.
Thought it was
great. Do you think that calling it what it is and what you were comfortable with is, you know, a stripper? The madam thing fucked me up. I'm like, no, I book escorts. You know, it's like, no, I'm a findom. Do you think that applying the actual terms to it actually takes the stigma out of the purity culture?
Yeah, I think I think not only does it normalize it, but I think that you take away a little bit of the other person's ammo if they're trying to judge you, because you're already coming out and saying, this is what I am. So nobody's going to call me a dirty stripper now because I just called myself a stripper. Because I've taken it's like with the word slut. If I own the word slut and say, okay, what is the definition of the word slut? It's somebody that dresses provocatively or acts provocatively. Okay, well, and maybe promiscuous. So that would make me fit the definition of slut. So now I'm a slut. So call me a slut. It's not going to hurt me. You know what I'm saying? If the shoe fits, I'm going to lace that bitch up and fucking wear it. So I just think that owning it really takes the sting out of the judgment. And I guess if we're talking about purity culture, you're taking away that. And making it like, oh, you're a slutty stripper. Well, yeah, really. So what else you got? You know?
How do you feel about people who are trying to maintain the purity culture by stating that all women are exploited? All women in sex work are exploited and they're being taken advantage of, and it's these big, bad, sweaty, stinky men that keep these girls pinned under the wheel of sex work, and that's why they can't get out, and try to virtue purity culture with that.
Or then the flip side of that is also people turn to sex work when there's nothing else, like when they don't have another option. And that is the other half of the victim narrative that I think is really like the victimization narrative that I think is also important to point out, because there's the people who assume that everybody's being trafficked, but there's also the people who assume, hey, you wouldn't do that if you had any other option. And I think for a lot of sex workers, that's just not true. Like when I did I did it because I wanted to.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and that's one of the other things that I tried to change with my books, or at least tried to illustrate, was that, you know, people do this because they want to. I could have done something else. If I had stayed in college, my dad would have been happier, but I would have had my way paid through college. I wouldn't have had to pay for college. I'd have been a lawyer, and I'd have been fucking miserable. You know, there's a good chance that I think, had I taken that path, you know, you'd have found me in the bathtub, you know. It's not something I wanted to do. I hated feeling that way, and I really loved the feeling of performing, and I loved the people that I met and the experiences that I had, and they weren't all great. They fucking sucks. Some were really bad. Dude, I had some rough nights, you know. I had some rough months. I quit probably 4 or 5 times, but I always came back. But it was something that I chose. And that's something else that is a theme in my writing, is the choice that we have, and not just to strip, but the choice that we have to break out of what we think that other people think we should do. You know, other people, be it your parents or family, or, you know, people you may grew up with, might have a certain standard that, you know, they think you're supposed to fit into. And I think it's important to examine what you really want for yourself and run with it. You know, I have been terrified. So one of the reasons I'm a pastry chef is because I didn't know what was going to happen when I quit dancing, when I wasn't able to dance anymore. And that ended up just being really expensive. I mean, I make some great pastries. You know, I can make you a dick cake like nobody's business, but still,
after COVID, I'm hitting you out.
But we'll have a big fat penis cake party. It'll be fun. But you know, I think it's important to follow what you want to do and not what people think you should be doing. I think that's a large reason why people are really unhappy. And I think that sometimes people that judge sex workers, or judge any artist or independent contractor, or somebody who decides to be self-employed, and, you know, we know that can be a bit of a struggle. I think that people will, I see it. He's gay. I think that those people are jealous because they feel like they're stuck in their box, and they're working their 9 to 5, and they hate it, and they're miserable, and they see somebody else who is not stuck in that box. And while they may still be struggling to make sure they're making what they need to make every month and all that stuff, I think sometimes that comes from a place of jealousy and a place of not feeling like they're able to just follow what they want to do, and they're stuck in that 9 to 5.
So kind of like the people who are like, you know, oh well, like I got my ass beat and I was perfectly fucking fine. So like my kids, you know, so now it's okay for me to do that. Like, you know, or, you know, I never got anything handed to me. Why should I like vote for an increase in unemployment benefits? That kind of thing.
Do you think that the sticking of purity culture and the exploitation language actually harms?
This is going to be the last question, by the way, Jen, before our wrap up questions, because we're coming up to the last 10 minutes or so. If you want to keep it to an hour, if you want to go a couple minutes over, then we can keep talking if you want to.
We can probably go a couple of minutes if you don't mind.
Okay. I'm trying to make sure I keep within your boundaries, because you were the one who said you kind of wanted to do closer to an hour.
Yeah.
Now that my wine's almost gone.
Erin's feeling really good about longer.
All right, Jen's question, round 3.
Do you feel that the pushing of purity culture and the exploitation language that is applied to all sex workers is harmful for those who are exploited and are being trafficked and used and not doing this against their will? Do you think that well, you have no other options, you're a whore, you're being exploited, do you think that stops them from coming out and reporting that they're being exploited or trafficked?
I don't know if it comes out, if that would stop somebody from reporting it. I don't have a frame of reference of being in that position, so I'm not sure. But what I do know is when it comes to the Hookers for Jesus group and it comes to the people that are following the Wayfair conspiracy or the group that used to come into my clubs, I think that they use the trafficking as an excuse to proselytize, as an excuse to push their agenda and to fundraise. I know that I saw, somebody who I knew personally because I worked with her. She knew that there weren't any traffic victims in the strip club, but yet she was using that as a way to say, oh, look, we're helping these victims, these traffic victims. And she knew very well that she was not a victim. She made some very bad choices that I'm sure she doesn't feel very good about now. But she uses that narrative now to make it seem like to paint us as victims. And I really push back against that. I think pushing willing sex workers, people that choose to do it, and painting them as victims, does a disservice to the actual victims. Right. Because they're using their resources.
Hey, Erin, you might need to adjust the position of your phone a little bit. Your mic is kind of going in and out.
Yeah, it's wicked.
Oh, okay. Maybe I just need to get closer. I don't know.
That's much clearer. Yeah. That is way better.
Okay.
But sorry. I was, especially with people who were like, look at all these victims that we're saving, coming out and putting these victims on Front Street. I've always wondered if that stops actual victims from coming forward because they don't want their faces out there. They don't want to be a charity case. And then when they're, on top of the, well, you're a whore and, are you sure you're not being exploited? And, oh, you have no other choice. That's another layer of, if I come out and say that I'm a victim, I'm going to get blamed for it. What were you doing? Why were you 15 years old with a 30-year-old man that was able to get his hands on you? Because
there's
I've seen some shit in the underground in the sex industry, and that happens a lot.
Well, and I'm going to leave one last point, and that is that I would say that the criminalization of prostitution in particular tends to be more harmful towards sex workers who are trafficked than anything else, like any other form of purity culture, because like the criminality of sex work, like the criminalization of sex work, is purity culture manifested in law, right? Like we can agree on that. And like ultimately that I think hurts sex workers that are trafficked, prostitutes especially that are trafficked more than anything else, because it holds them criminally responsible for their own exploitation.
Right.
That's what I was going to say. How do you prove that you're not, or that you are a victim in that case? And the other thing about like legalized, another thing I wrote about, I met a girl that worked at the Bunny Ranch years ago, and I happened to meet her backstage. I have a friend who's a stand-up comedian, so I met him. We went in the green room and actually met Dennis Hoff, who's a piece of shit. He's dead now. And
he's actually better off dead. He did not treat his girls well.
Yeah, no, he didn't. I met him. I actually met him twice, and yeah, he's a piece of shit.
He's. I heard stories about. We had some of his former girls come work for us.
So, well, you might know the one that I'm talking about, which is, and I mentioned her name, Soprano. She went by the last name of Soprano. She had dark, huge fucking boobs, dude.
Oh my god.
You know who I'm talking about?
Yes, because it was something like Meadow Soprano, but it wasn't Meadow Soprano.
It was I'll think Isabella.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. Yes.
So I met her, and actually we, got to know each other. And then Dennis Hoff got all mad because he wanted us to pay, and I'm like, that's not how girls work, dumbass. But we talked about it, and I was like, I'm a stripper, but I don't think I could ever be a prostitute. I said, I don't think that's for me. I don't think and she goes, I love it. And she was married, and she's like, I fly in, and she told me about the whole thing, and she paid taxes, and she was safe. She had the same type of boundaries and safeguards that I did in the club, where she had security, they had panic buttons, they had, they got tested. And that always stuck with me. If we could have removed the big fucking pig pimp dude out of there and actually had somebody who gave a shit about the girls, that seemed like the best way for that to happen, where not only from a government standpoint.
Erin, you need to lean back into your mic. You're going in and out again.
Oh, I'm sorry. but no, I think legalizing it would solve a lot of the problems from the safety issue. I think it might help normalize it. I think it might let go of some of the stigmas. Yeah. But she loved her work. I mean, and she made it very clear that she was happy with what she did and really liked it. So I think legalization from that standpoint would help.
Yeah, and it takes the pimping aspect out too.
Yeah, except for dude, he was still there, and that, like I said, that was the one thing that really bugged me, was him in particular.
Well,
and maybe it was just him. He's so gross.
And it didn't. I met him once, and you have to remember too, I came from the era of 42nd Street. I came from the era of actual street walking hookers in New York City, where there actually were these super over the top Hollywood pimps. He gave me the vibe of the pimp that made it, if that makes sense. Like,
I don't know.
He's like the pimp that got out of the project.
That's what I remember.
Kind of guy.
Yeah, he was great.
Like, oh. And he had come up to me, and I was like, no, I book them, I care for them, I'm not. Well, you sure should be. And I'm like, bitch, I'm not fucking here for that.
I said something along the lines of, I make just as much money and I don't have to fuck anybody.
Yep.
Because I was like, why would I?
And
it was the whole point of my job
right before I got to FinDom. And I looked and I was like, I'm probably making double what his girls are making, and I literally don't even have to get naked. No.
What softened the blow for me was that there was Dave Attell was there at that show, and Lewis Black, so I got to meet them, and that was it. And Dennis Hoff and Isabella. Luckily, Dennis Hoff was more of a side show for me, but I met him on one other occasion, and yeah, he was yucky, dude. So sorry, good riddance.
So we're coming up to the wrap up. By the way, thank you so much again, Erin, for coming on. Like, this has been a wonderful discussion, and we've gotten so much positive feedback from the chat.
Able to talk about sex work and sex openly.
Yeah, like, that's incredible. And I mean, you just made an amazing video about that, which we'll talk about in a moment when we do our announcements and stuff, like what we've done recently, because I feel like that was criminally underwatched, like in terms of like what that was and where it's being advertised. But we have two closing questions that we always ask. So first one's from me, because you're an atheist coming onto the show. What do you think that theists can do to be better allies to atheists in terms of being able to work together towards, say, destigmatizing purity culture? Or rather, destigmatizing like sex work and such.
I think we just need to recognize that we're all sexual beings. The purity culture holds people to a standard that isn't, I don't think, biologically natural. I mean, we just are sexual beings. I think if we're all considerate of each other's feelings and thoughts and boundaries, I mean, I don't see having any problems there. I think that's the best way to be an ally, honestly. Like we said before, just don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. Don't be a fucking stupid ass pimp. Like, don't fucking do that shit. Same question to you. What do you think theists can do to
atheists?
Wait, no, you asked atheists.
No, I asked theists. What can theists do to be better allies to atheists?
Okay.
You done fucked it, Jen.
I fucked it. Hey. What do you think atheists can do to kind of help take the stigma out of purity culture and actually make it a level playing field for women, especially women who do want to get into sex work and feel protected in venturing into it?
Honestly, it's really the same answer.
Just don't be a dick.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think if you just really take other people's experiences and try to understand where other people are coming from, and empathize with your fellow human beings. I mean, in the end, it really doesn't make any difference whether somebody believes in something you don't, as long as you guys are meeting in the middle and people are taking,
your mic is wigging out again a little bit. You need to adjust the.
I don't know why that is.
It's the connection. It's the connection. Y'all are getting like record heat out there. I'm surprised you still have a phone and it hasn't melted. Right now.
Oh, me? I'm in my house. That's why I'm not outside. It's still like 100 something outside. Yeah, like Satan's asshole outside.
Or a good night at New Year's working at a club that's packed full of girls that have just want to keep
Yeah.
giving out money. Yeah, you know
Yeah,
that.
no, honestly, man, I think it's just a matter of trying to understand where other people are coming from. And
You
I
are
think you do
getting
that
so
when
much love in the
you're
chat right
it.
now, by the way.
Oh, I can't, when I'm sitting too far away, I can't read it.
Oh. Yeah, Erin is amazing. Like, you guys, Erin is fucking amazing. Erin is absolutely fucking amazing.
By the way, links to both the Atheist Wind Down and to Erin's channel are in the description if you guys are looking. I thought about linking your website as well, but again, I didn't get a chance to ask you, so I can put that in after the show if you would like me to add your website
And
as
I
well.
think did
Sure.
you take her book links from mine when I did the show with her? Because I have those up.
They actually are on the website as well. I could probably grab them and put them there. So this is the shill portion of the section. Do you have anything cool coming up, Erin, that you want to talk about a little bit, like either on your channel or interviews coming up, or obviously you've got your book launch?
Well, I did my book came out last year, so I did my book launch. I just had my first fiction piece actually published.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that was kind of exciting.
So
Weird, but kind of exciting. So I'm actually been working on
what genre?
Well, so this was actually a ghost story.
That's cool. I write sci-fi, horror, and fantasy.
Yeah, it was. I'm not super into sci-fi, although my kid has recently asked me to read the Foundation series by Isaac Asimov. So that's kind of the first sci-fi I've been into in I don't even know how long. So yeah, I don't like Star Wars and Star Trek. It's cool. So I told you I'm an asshole. So I'm really kind of getting into fiction. I'm writing a murder mystery with a friend of mine, Armin Rosamia. He's an awesome crime thriller horror type writer. I really like horror mysteries and that kind of stuff. The story that I just wrote right now, it's in an anthology called Beyond the Grave, put out by a lady named Sammy Sands. And that's kind of where I'm moving to. My website does have links to all my other free thought articles and books and other interviews. I'll put a link to this interview up there too. So I think that's it. I'm terrible at shilling.
Wait, whose cat is meowing? Is it mine?
It's
is it
yours? This is Minerva.
Okay, I was like, holy shit, are my cats okay? Well, no, Darcy came running in meowing, so I thought it may have been her, and I was like, oh my god, is everybody okay?
No, it's Minerva. She's annoyed. She's stuck in the
okay.
in the
I was
room.
just like, holy shit, is everyone all right?
So what about you, Jen? What have you got coming up?
I'm tossing between doing a video on his name is Alex, because I think it is absolutely something that needs to be talked about. And pick me bullshit. I'm going to address the ladies probably, if not this week or next week, about a pick me culture, which is women who are I cook, I clean, get you a bitch that does this, I do this, I do that. The pick me culture bullshit.
Yeah, the nice girl culture.
I can't stand these bitches. I can't fucking stand these bitches that are like, well, I don't understand. I cook, I clean, I'm loyal. How come I don't have a man? Because you're a whiny fucking bitch that puts other fucking women beneath you.
Jen, you're gonna hate me, but look up r/night girls and then yell at r/nice girls and fucking yell at me when you're done.
Fuck off, no.
You know you're gonna do it. I know you're gonna fall asleep tonight and you're gonna fucking do it, and then I'm gonna get angry WhatsApp messages.
I have been, oh my god, somebody said, why did the dragling not disturb the stream? I didn't call you.
The answer, Socialist Dragon, is I haven't
on the guys a lot lately. So, we gotta talk. I gotta talk to us ladies that are doing this shit, because this is so the fucking root of men seeing us as catty fucking bitches. We gotta talk. Us ladies gotta talk.
Do you have an interview coming up on Friday?
Not that I've picked yet. I'm thinking of doing every other Friday interviews, just because I've been kind of wiping myself out.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I think for a bit, but I am looking into doing Twitch streams where we just sit and chat and kind of bullshit, and it's it's not even like a Q&A, just the fucking chat brings up shit and we all talk about it. I'm also looking into an OnlyFans where I sit on that bed, probably with no pants on, eating cheese fries, no makeup, and I yell about shit in my personal life. I yell about things that are too short to put on a video, and I may be able to do custom. Say you fucking hate your ex, your mother, your dad, whatever, and you just can't find the words. I'll fucking tell them all for you. So those are things I'm venturing into now.
That sounds exciting. On Thursday, I've got a video coming out on miasma, pollution and purification, and agos, which was divine wrath, sort of in ancient Hellenic culture. So I'll be talking about that, and why modern Hellenists sort of purify themselves before ritual, and how like purification was not because of any sort of perceived sin. It was considered to be just sort of a natural force that existed. And so I'll be talking about the differences between that and what Christians think of as sin, and how like miasma was just sort of a thing that exists rather than a, you know, like some sort of moral failing. So I'll be talking about that on Thursday. But I've got an even bigger announcement, which is on Wednesday, I'm going to be going on Neil's channel to talk about my deconversion story. So
you ain't giving me a fucking break this week outside of this goddamn mic. You know?
Neil was my first.
Oh, Neil popped your cherry.
He did. My YouTube.
Ooh.
I was so nervous.
Oh yeah, and then you go on Neil's and it's like, oh, every show is gonna be like this. No. Like...
Yeah, comrade, that is actually a very apt comparison. So that is incredibly exciting. And yeah, that's the big stuff I've got going on. I'm trying to think. Big announcement for the channel. I know folks know about the Patreon. Link is in the description. I actually have also added a coffee and a research material wish list on Amazon. So those of you that are curious what sort of topics I'm looking into, obviously, again, no requirement to support me, but if you're not comfortable doing a monthly donation through Patreon, I have coffee now for people who want to just put $5 in here and there to help out. The research materials for my videos get extremely expensive. I just, thanks to the grace of my patrons, got a $180 book on etymology that, again, doesn't exist online. And like that research material wish list will kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about. But if you do decide to pick something off of it, and you do the little gifting attachment receipt thing, as long as the name is appropriate for YouTube, I will read off whatever note that you have, as long as it's like appropriate for YouTube and not overly trolly. So if you guys are interested in that stuff, the links are in the description, along with Jen's channel and Erin's. And after we get out of the recording and YouTube processes it, I will add Erin's website and links to her latest book to the description as well.
They let me do it when it's processing stuff.
Sometimes it gets pissy and deletes the chat if I try to change the description when it's processing, and I don't know why it does it.
Oh shit. Okay, I won't do that anymore then.
So thank you guys again so much for coming. Thank you again, Erin, for doing the interview and for going a few minutes over.
Erin. That's why I asked her to come on, because I just like hanging out.
And remember, everybody, we're stronger together.
Oh my god, did she not end the stream? Hold on.
Oh,
what happened?